Hello and welcome to this PriceAJob tutorial series on how to create a custom module in PriceAJob. In this first video of the series, we'll introduce the concept and discuss how to add resources to a custom module. PriceAJob comes complete with over 200 construction modules that you can use to easily estimate any residential job. And if you find that a module is missing, please contact us and we'll include it in a future release. However, until then, you'll just have to make do with over 200 modules covering just about every aspect of residential construction estimating. Or, you do have the option to create a custom module yourself, and as a builder, we think you'll take right to it. Here, under the Other Costs module in the Module Toolbar, you'll find a very special module called Custom Module. Go ahead and select this. This will allow you to create a custom module from scratch, which you can then save and reuse again and again whenever the need arises. Here you can set your module title, location, and category folder. But let's skip all that and jump right in and click Create. And this opens a completely blank module. This includes a navigation and admin pane on the left, a sketch pane, a description pane, and an estimate pane in the center, all of which are currently empty at the moment, and a right-hand pane to show our various module stages. These center panes can be resized however you wish to make each pane larger. And you also have the ability to expand each of them to full screen, or minimize. Here's description full screen, and estimate full screen. So to start off with, let's rename our group folder. Here we'll click the three dots, and rename. And we'll change the title of this from Custom Module to Outbuildings, and save. Next, let's rename the module itself. And we can do that either by clicking the three dots here and selecting Rename, or we can just go to our main stage and retitle that here. Let's call this one Garden Shed Simple. And by the time we're done this video series, we'll have created two custom modules. One is Garden Shed Simple, and the other will be Garden Shed Advanced. Next, let's change this icon here to something more appropriate for a garden shed. By clicking on the icon, this opens the PriceAJob library. And we can search through the icons here to find something suitable for a garden shed, or if we prefer, we can choose an image file from our local system. And this one should do nicely, and that updates the icon here in our main stage. Next, let's go down to the bottom left here to check out our settings. We can click the three cogs icon here to open our settings panel, and we have tabs here for General, Tax and Profit, Versions, and Location. Under the Tax and Profit pane, we have an option to add profits, or just show our net costs. Net costs are useful for internal accounting, but of course, for anything that we want to supply the client, we'll definitely want to have our profits included. Here we can either show or hide our profits on the screen, and we can use these sliders to adjust our margins on materials, labor, plant and tool, and other costs. Under the tax and discount section, if you're tax registered, you'll definitely want to mark that as yes, as then all of your supplies will be net of any taxes. If you select no, then taxes will be automatically added to your materials and other costs. The tax rate is set at 11.5%, but you can adjust this for your local region. In our case, we are tax registered, so we will check yes, so that we don't have to pay taxes on our materials, but it will be calculated for the customer's final quote. You can also choose to show a discount, either none, a percentage, or a fixed amount. And at the bottom, you can choose to round all your materials, labor, plant and tool, and other costs to whole numbers either for the current project or for all projects. When you close this pane, you still have the option to quickly hide or show your profits by toggling this checkbox here. Just bear in mind that if you hide your profits, you definitely want to recheck that box before you share these details with your client. So let's start building out our module here. We'll start with the estimate pane by adding some materials. And this is done here under the estimate pane, under this first stage here, and there's icons here for adding new materials, labor, plant and tool, or other costs. We'll click Add New Material, and we'll enter this manually by clicking here in the empty field. And let's just type Garden Shed 1800 by 3600 millimeters. And for pricing, we will set a price of $1,000 each. Next, we'll add another material here for the base, but this time, rather than typing it in manually, let's search the PriceAJob library this time for patio stones. And here we see 23-inch square patio stone slabs. And we can select that, and that's imported directly into our estimate stage here. And let's add one more material for the sub-base. This time we'll need some sand. So we'll just type sand in the library. And then here we can select sand by the cubic yard in a bulk bag. And that's added to our estimate. Now if you look carefully here, you'll notice that some of our materials have icons that are gray in color and others are orange. And the reason for that is the orange colors show that these are materials that are located within the PriceAJob library. The gray icons represent a material that we've input manually. Now if we've manually input a material that we'll be using again and we'd like to add this to the PriceAJob library, it's easy to do. We just head over here to the right and we select this gray cog icon to open a menu of other tasks. And here we can select Add to Library. Here we can adjust the title of our material, set the pricing, and assign it to a category. In this case, this one might belong in landscaping. And then save. And once it's added to the library, the icon changes from gray to orange. Now, if we'd like to organize these materials into a specific order, we can click on these two bars on the left here, and these are grab handles that we can use to reorder our materials. It would seem to make sense to start off with the garden shed, and then show the materials for our base and sub-base in that order. So we'll keep it in the order that it was in. And if we're able to negotiate a price that's better than what PriceAJob has in the library, we can just click in the price box here and override that value. When we do so, it's highlighted in yellow to let us know that this is an overridden value that's different from what is in the PriceAJob library. If we miss out on that deal and we need to reset it, we can just go to the cog icon here and select Reset. And that resets the price back to the library values. We also have under the cog icon an option to visit the website. And this opens the product page for the material where we can look up the description and other specifications. Now it's time to add some labor to our estimate here. So rather than adding material this time, we'll select the Add New Labor icon. And this adds a new section on the stage for labor. And we can input a description manually here. We'll call this Install Garden Shed. And for quantity, we'll set that as 5 hours. And we can select this drop-down arrow here to indicate who the tradesperson is that will be installing this. And PriceAJob has a variety of tradespeople that we can choose from. In this case, we might just assign this to a general laborer, in which case the rate is $16.08 an hour. If we were to assign this to a carpenter, for example, then the rate would increase to $30.46 an hour. But in this case, we'll just stick with the general laborer. The default rates for these various tradespeople are stored here in the Company tab under the Resources section for tradespeople. And here you can see a list of all the various tradespeople that PriceAJob has rates for. And because regionally rates vary, you can select the area that you're working in to update the rates to be competitive with local standards. And if you need to adjust these for a specific project, you can override these values for this one specific project. Let's go back to our Estimate tab and reopen our Garden Shed module. And we can see that here we have the materials for the shed and the labor to install it. Now this stage is currently just named Stage, which is kind of vague. So let's go ahead and rename that. And we do that here in the sidebar for stages. We can select this and we'll retitle this as Shed. And that changes the title here in the sidebar as well as here in the estimate pane. Now let's add a new stage. We can do that here in the stage bar. We'll click Add Stage. And we can either create a new one or we can choose from the library. And there's a variety of stages here that we can choose from. In this case, let's go ahead and create a new one. And we'll call this Decorating. And adjust our typos. And click Create. And this adds a new decorating stage here in the sidebar as well as to our estimate. And now for this, we'll add a material. We'll click Add New Material. And we could input this manually, but let's search the library here for stains. So let's type stain in the search. And we'll select some waterproofing stain and sealer. And that's added to our estimate. And let's change the quantity of this to 2. So now let's add some labor to apply the wood stain to our shed. So here under the decorating stage, we will select Add New Labor. And we could input this manually, or we can search it from the library, because PriceAJob also has a library of labor tasks. So we can look at the options here, and we can see that there's one for exterior staining, 2 coats, so we'll select that. And that is added to our decorating stage. And this job is automatically assigned to a painter, and is calculated at $1.13 per square foot. Now we can change that to per hour if we prefer, and we might want to override this value to say it'll take 4.5 hours to apply 2 coats of paint. And you see that automatically rounds up to 5. Now the reason for that is we have rounded quantities set here in our settings. So if we go back to settings and scroll down, for this current project, let's turn the rounding off so we can have more precise values. There we go. And that puts our value back to 4.5 hours. And we don't actually need a painter to be doing this job. We can assign this to the same general labor as we had installing the shed. And that saves us a bit of money on the labor here as well. So now we can go to our Reports tab here and select Quote. And here we can see a detailed quote for our outbuildings, garden shed, including materials and labor, subtotal, taxes, and the customer's total. And because we've been playing with the profit checkmark, it's a good idea to make sure that we have our profit selected. If we were to deselect this, we'd be sending a quote to our client without any profit included, just our net costs. And we certainly don't want to do that. So we'll checkmark the profit, and that includes $218 of markup for a total value of $1,509. Now with the quote, we do have a variety of options for this as well. And this is quite detailed and probably more detailed than you might want to share with your customer. And that's because currently we're set for detailed stage prices and advanced structure showing all fields. So to start with, let's adjust our stage prices. Currently they show detailed, but we might only want to show the total and stages because detailed will show the complete breakdown of materials, labor, plant and tool, and other costs. So let's just show the total and stages. And this gives a breakdown for each stage. In this case, the outbuildings is $1,312. And if we had several stages here, they would all be itemized. In this case, because there's only one stage, it's kind of redundant. So let's just change that pricing to total only. And that gets rid of this value here at the top. And here they can see the subtotal, tax, and total at the bottom. If you prefer, you can select none. And that just shows the fields described here under the advanced structure. Let's show the total and change this to simple. Now with simple, none of the details are shared other than just the stage and the cost. So let's change this back to advanced. So for description, if we deselect that, it removes the garden shed title there. So let's leave that in to describe our garden shed. Materials, we can deselect that to hide the materials and to hide the labor. And if we had plant and tool and other costs, we could also hide or show those. And if we're showing any of these details, materials, we can either hide the pricing of those materials and labor, or hide the units as well. So depending on how you want to structure your quote, you have a variety of options here available to you. And while you're on this quote page, if you need to adjust any of your profit margins, you can click on the project details icon here and adjust your sliders here, and you can see the quote automatically adjusts as you make your various changes. And if you want to include a discount, you can include that here as a percentage, say a 5% discount. And that's automatically calculated into your quote. Or you could make that a fixed discount, say $200, and that's automatically applied to your quote as well. We're going to turn the discounting off and leave our margins as is and make sure that we show our profit. And that covers the basics of how to create a blank custom module and add the resources. In the next tutorial, we'll discuss how to add a description to the custom module. Thank you for using PriceAJob.